All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. So for this video, I wanted to get back a little bit to the bodybuilding history side of things. And in this video, talking about the 2019 Mr. Olympia, I wanted to speak comparatively about past Olympias and past situations that are similar to the situation we have now, where seven-time Mr. Olympia Phil Heath was defeated at the last Olympia. We have a new Mr. Olympia right now. It's kind of up in the air whether Phil will come back. We've got some top guys out of the Olympia this year. A lot of people speculating we might have a new Mr. Olympia in 2019. So that's where things get interesting. And I thought a good comparison here would be the end of the reign of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, obviously, Arnold and Phil both won the same number of Mr. Olympias. They both won 7. Arnold had a little bit different situation. He won 6 in a row from 1970 to 1975. Then he took a 4-year hiatus until 1980 and came back and won the 1980 Mr. Olympia to win 7. But 1980 marked the official end of the reign of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was done after that. And in the years that followed Arnold Schwarzenegger's last Mr. Olympia win, 1981, 1982, and 1983, there were 3 one-time Mr. Olympias, and then in 1984, Lee Haney won the Olympia. So in 4 years after the reign of Arnold Schwarzenegger, there were 4 new Mr. Olympia champions. And the reason for that, I think, is very similar to the situation we have now. There's really no clear frontrunners, besides obviously Shawn Rhoden because he's the reigning Mr. Olympia, and in the absence of Phil and in the absence of Ramy, there's really no clear guy that would be the next reigning Mr. Olympia or be the next top guy for years to come. No one has really set that standard. And back in the early 80s, that was like the only time in bodybuilding history, or in Olympia history rather, that you have that many new Mr. Olympias in that window of time. Actually, if you look at it a little bit differently, in 79, Frank Zane won, and in 80, Arnold Schwarzenegger won. So technically, in a 6-year time frame, you had 6 different winners of the Olympia. So for 6 years, every single year, a new person won the Olympia from 79 to 84. And then obviously starting in 84, you had the reign of Lee Haney. So that's the only time in Olympia history that ever happened. And if Phil, just assume for the sake of this video that Phil never comes back, this is probably the first time in bodybuilding history we really have the opportunity for that to happen again. Because while Shawn is Mr. Olympia, he's got a fantastic physique and he's a fantastic Mr. Olympia, he's in his mid-40s. And he doesn't really stick out to me as being a guy that's going to be a dominant Mr. Olympia for the next 5+ years. So this could be one of those times in bodybuilding history where we could have multiple new Mr. Olympias over the next 5 years and have no clear definitive reign. Because over the history of the Olympia, there's been a lot of guys that have had very long reigns. Obviously, Phil Heath, Ronnie Coleman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dorian Yates. These are guys that had 5+ year Olympia reigns. And I really just don't see any guys right now that look like they would be a 5-time or more Mr. Olympia. So we could be on the verge of, a very interesting next couple of years at the Olympia and a very competitive next couple of years at the Mr. Olympia. Starting right now, I think 2020 is going to be the first opportunity. Well, it is the first opportunity for someone new to become Mr. Olympia after Shawn Rhoden, again, assuming Phil doesn't compete. And I think that could be something really interesting for bodybuilding fans and really something we haven't had before in the era of social media. I mean, really, as far as social media is concerned, the era of social media has been also the Phil Heath era. The past 7 years has been the reign of Phil Heath. So the past 7 years, the Olympia and bodybuilding on social media has been all about Phil Heath, Mr. Olympia. So for the first time in the social media age, we could be talking about a new Mr. Olympia for the next couple of years. And that's something we've never had before, and that's something I'm excited for the possibility of. Because we've become so used to and so conditioned over the past 7 years to just expect Phil Heath to win and just expect the reign of Phil Heath to continue. And then Shawn Rhoden put an end to that. And I think someone this year could possibly defeat Shawn Rhoden. And I think if anybody does it, I've said this before, I think it's going to be Brandon Curry. I think Brandon Curry is probably the #1 threat to Shawn Rhoden's title at this point. The Arnold Classic champion. He's getting better and better every show he does. He said in an interview recently he wants to come in looking like 98 Ronnie Coleman at this 2019 Mr. Olympia. And I think if Brandon improves from the Arnold Classic to the Mr. Olympia in September, and he looks better than he looked at the Arnold. And again, at the Arnold, he beat everybody essentially in that lineup besides, Shawn Rhoden and Phil Heath. I think we're likely going to see Brandon and Sean battling it out in the top two. And then if Brandon wins the Olympia, as great as I think Brandon is, do we see Brandon as a 5-time or more Mr. Olympia? So again, I think from a bodybuilding history standpoint, what we're on the verge of right now with the Mr. Olympia, I think it's going to be something very interesting, something very new, something we're not used to seeing. And I think the days of, just knowing who's going to win the Mr. Olympia, and these days of, a reigning Mr. Olympia champ for years and years and years are over. And I think the Olympia title is going to be up for grabs for the next several years for the first time in bodybuilding history. So I think we're on the verge of a very interesting period of time in bodybuilding. And I think it's probably more exciting now than ever to be a bodybuilding fan comparatively. And I think we're getting back to the, Arnold Schwarzenegger winning one year, Franco winning the next, Chris Dickerson winning the next, Samir Bannout winning the next, then finally in 84, Lee Haney winning and beginning the reign of a new dominant Mr. Olympia. I don't think the reign of a new dominant Mr. Olympia is going to happen anytime soon. I think the next guy, that's the next Phil or the next Ronnie Coleman, hasn't competed at the Olympia yet, or maybe we just don't know who that is yet. I don't think he's been a top guy at the Olympia yet. I don't think, even if Big Ramy were to come back next year and win the Olympia, it's hard for me to see Big Ramy as a guy that's going to come in consistently with that conditioning or whatever it takes for him to actually win the Olympia and then dominantly win the Olympia for years and years. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What period in Olympia or bodybuilding history do you think was the most exciting period in bodybuilding history? And do you guys think we're on the verge of the next early 80s, a new Mr. Olympia every single year? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not already for Olympia coverage, because we are getting very, very close, less than 3 months away now from the 2019 Mr. Olympia. As always, thank you guys for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.